I've been working on this game for 35 to 40 hours a week on top of my 40 hours a week electrical engineering job for 1.5 years now. That's right, I've forgotten what grass feels like. And today I've got some cool new stuff to show you, so buckle up for a grog-filled, questionably legal traipse through my new additions. But first, if this is your first time seeing my game, here's a quick overview to catch you up. It's called Isle Goblin and is a game where you play as a little goblin fighting off nasty, ugly humans. The island gets procedurally generated when you start the game with multiple layers and a bunch of different biomes. You can go out and explore for resources, pillage dungeons, clean up human pollution, go fishing, and fight bosses. You then come home and craft things, build up your town, form friendships with the NPCs, take care of your livestock, and farm for crops. And it supports 8-player multiplayer, which definitely wasn't easy, so you can now be a dirty goblin with up to 7 of your friends. Now before I go into some of the bigger stuff, there's one big change I wanted to talk about first because I heard some very strong opinions about it from you guys. In the last video, I made it so that you pass out if it gets too late at night, forcing the player to sleep much like Stardew Valley. I did this to add a bit of extra stress and challenge to the game to see how it felt, but after playtesting a bit, it was just so annoying. I ended up removing it and making it so that you don't need to sleep, but you can optionally sleep to pass time if you want. I also made it so all the goblins are nocturnal. The NPCs will go to sleep when the sun rises and be awake at night. If you walk around on the surface during daytime, it's very toasty and you'll experience sun blight, which is a condition that makes you slightly slower and deal slightly less damage since goblins, much like me, fear the sun. To combat this, I've added roof tiles. You can place roofs overhead like so where the sun blight will go away while you're under them. Nothing like some refreshing shade to relax in. This was actually pretty hard to put in. I made it so the roofs turn invisible when you walk under them, unless you have a roof modifying item equipped, in which case they'll be half transparent so you can still see them enough to edit them. And of course it'll only fade the room that you're under, so you can't see the inside of buildings that you're not inside of. Now that that was done, I had two main focuses, spicing up combat and making NPCs feel more alive. So first off, I'll discuss combat. The main issue with combat in the game was that there'd be these huge like and subscribe buttons that the player just wasn't strong enough to defeat, and it needed some viewers that could help click them to make them weaker, but who knows if anything can be done about that. Besides that, combat didn't have any magic spice yet. You could use your sword or bow and dodge roll around to avoid attacks, but that was it. I wanted some sort of magic ability you could use every once in a while, kind of like an Overwatch ultimate. I came up with the idea of magic tattoos that you could equip, and they would give you a special ability that would slowly regenerate. But during a YouTube live stream, the viewers convinced me that Warpaint made more sense than tattoos because you could take it off and apply different ones. Tattoos aren't exactly known for their temporary nature. So I added this NPC here named Merle, and once you find him, you can give him items to unlock new Warpaints. A Fireball Warpaint, for example, may need some hot peppers or something to mix the paint. Once you unlock it, you can apply it on your arm. Eventually, you can unlock putting some on your face, chest, and legs too, so you can have 4 Warpaints equipped at once, but to start you can only do 1. You gotta work for it. Applying the Warpaints causes the player sprite to change based on the color of paint you applied. In the top right, you have a meter, which once it's full, you can activate the Warpaint ability. My test one here just shoots out some fireballs and is kind of pathetic, but in the future they'll have cool effects that are more intense. There could eventually be some paints that heal you and your friends, or stun enemies, or poison enemies. The options are kinda endless. This helps give you a little card up your sleeve that you can use when things get tough in combat. There are only 2 in the game for now, but I'm going for proof of concept here and it'll be easy to add more. Now next up are the NPC improvements, and there are lots. You can already give them gifts and ask them to walk around with you, but I think a huge part of what makes the NPCs feel so alive in something like Stardew Valley is the cutscenes. The creator hand puppeted each cutscene, so the sprites kinda do this little performance for you, moving around and emoting and stuff, and it can lead to some very emotionally impactful moments where the NPCs feel like actual people. Here's the problem. I want to do something similar, but it would be a nightmare to implement since the player can terraform the entire world. I don't have the luxury of saying, start at position 12,4, move 2 tiles left, wait 2 seconds, etc. I'd have to make it so the system was smart enough to deal with whatever nonsense the player builds. Like, what if a cutscene triggers and the stupid player just places walls everywhere? Or player 1 is in the cutscene and then player 2 comes in and explodes the building, you know? I could put the player in some sort of fake alternate diorama world temporarily, but that would just take so much work. Overall, it's not worth the time it would take. So I instead decided that I would hand draw cutscene slides that look like this. Now this one was just a hasty mock-up, but I need to keep them small enough that I can make a couple hundred of them in a week or two, but big enough that they aren't too pixelated. I think this is a decent middle ground size where it's not too much work for me, but it still doesn't look too bad. I have to save time where I can since it's just me working on the code and art. There's only one cutscene for now, and it's the researcher goblin, but I'll add more in once I'm 100% sure the NPCs won't change because I don't want to waste time. I then wanted to add a holiday system where NPCs can gather on certain days of the year and hang out. This is pretty common for Stardew/Harvest Moon type games, but I once again bump into a procedural generation issue. In those games, the townspeople set up fun mini games and even a little maze and stuff like that. I really want to do something similar, but I can't exactly obliterate a chunk of land to put a big maze there very easily. I almost need them to be able to go to a whole new area. Here's my idea. You place this town square item which will serve as a hub for holiday activity. In some holidays, the NPCs may all gather on it and hang out. On others, a tent may appear that you can enter to teleport to a new room to see a bunch of festival attractions. For now, I've only added this eclipse holiday where there's no sunlight and the goblins celebrate being able to go outside without the sunlight affecting them by singing and dancing in the town square. I'll work on the rest of the holidays once I'm done with this video. And of course, the holidays felt kind of weird without having seasons that look very different from each other. I've made it so that the art will change for the surroundings as the seasons change. Since we're on a small island, a super snowy winter doesn't make a ton of sense, and we already have this tundra biome that's frozen by strange human magic, so I made the winter sprites look more like a California winter. Let me know what you think about that. I'm very used to winter being super snowy in games, so I'm open to thoughts. Overall, I think autumn is my favorite though, I just love the colors. Now I've also made it so there can be visitor NPCs that drop in for a day and sell stuff before leaving. The first is this NPC named Michael, who is definitely a goblin and surely doesn't have any ulterior motives. The rest of the goblins love him and he brings all sorts of human artifacts you can wear. This is my sneaky way of making it so that you can have humany things in a game about goblins. I've added about 20 new vanity items that are all human things that you can get from him. I have a hard time choosing a favorite, but I think the tinfoil hat that a stream viewer suggested goes pretty hard. And of course, Michael likes to show up on the holidays and party with the goblins. What a great guy. Speaking of the goblins, the sharp-eyed among you may have noticed that I changed the eyes of the goblins. They used to be these black dots, which were certainly cute, but I've changed them to be yellow to match the portrait art. This was a very controversial change based on the TikTok comments, so please let me know down below what you think. Now before I get to some of the newer NPCs, I had a tiny change that I think is fun. I previously made it so that when you start the game, you have these nasty human varmints that invaded your inventory and take up space. When you research varmint repellent at the research station, they go away, giving you more slots. Now as a fun little splash of flavor, I've made it so that once you repel them, they don't just die or disappear, they come back to the town and live near your beacon, as they've grown quite fond of you. Either that or housing prices are just too high. Either way, you can pet them for no additional benefit to yourself or them. It's just a small dumb little addition that wasted a couple of hours, but I think these are the sort of fun little sprinkles that turn a game from an ugly muffin into a beautiful cupcake. And going back to the NPCs, I've added the fishing NPC, Pike. She's the local fishing expert and sells you spears so that you don't have to use your precious iron ingots to craft the good ones. I also added a ton of new fish and made it so they all swim around differently in the minigame. Some are fast, some are slow, etc. You may also notice the water texture is no longer just a blank color and has a little shader magic to it, which I think is a nice touch. My favorite fish is the bonefish because we seem to have very similar posture. Now that Pike is in the game, I've added a cooking NPC, Grella. She'll help you with the cooking and also eventually sell you the coveted grog table, which you can place and the goblins will gather around each night to drink some hearty grog. Some of them go a little crazy with it though, so watch out for that. Drinking grog yourself, of course, comes with some debuffs. So I always get the question, when will the game be done? And I'm starting to get a better idea of what the initial demo needs at a bare minimum for me to open up waves of playtesting, since as of right now, over 3,200 of you have signed up to playtest. As a reminder, you can go on Steam and search up Isle Goblin to wishlist the game to get an email when it comes out, and to sign up for the playtest when I'm ready. I made this spreadsheet here where I map out all of my remaining tasks and how long I think it'll take. Right now, it looks like it'll hopefully be ready between February and April of 2025, but it's really hard to say for sure. The challenge is that I need to decide what mechanics to add without the scope of the game getting too large. I think the only remaining big mechanics are to add a mail system and a system for other NPCs to spawn on the island besides the goblins in your town. This way the island feels a lot less lonely and empty, which I think is the last big flaw of the game. Once those two are done, I'm confident it's just a matter of tuning everything and adding in stuff. Now as is custom with these videos, it's time to share the wishlist count. When I was first starting, I always wondered how many Steam wishlists other developers on YouTube had, since they're a good indicator of how many sales you'll make. So I want to be transparent with the other developers out there. I'm currently just under 30,000 wishlists, so make sure to head on over there and slam the button to push us over the edge. But in all seriousness, I am beyond humbled at the current amount of interest. I really do just want to make a game that resonates with people and is as fun as some of the games that have inspired me. I'm trying to take my time with it so I can really make something good. And with that, thanks everyone for dropping by, and I will see you in the next update. Hello everyone, the time has come to shout out our eternally gracious patrons. I'd like to give a super special shout out to our Goblin Deity patrons for August of 2024, namely Zachary Neese, Zach Fox, Charfil, Krakenfall, Joseph Scobby, Megan Palmer, Reddit Slime on YouTube, Sierra Kovac, Enigma77, Snout, Guardian, Chendrak, Player Unnamed, Colton Reagan, Gilbert Frank, Odie Dragon, Atomic Diamond, Lord Mortimus, Alexander On, Miguel Osuga, Jacob, SSDZ, Pissed Kitty, Emmanuel Hernandez, I'm a Little Sus, Alzern, and of course, triple question mark. You're all amazing and I appreciate all of the support.